There are moments in life when you feel like you've been waiting for something for so long, and it's as if time itself has been a barrier between you and the blessing that's been promised. You've cried out, you've prayed, you've sacrificed, and still you're wondering, God, when will it happen? You've seen others around you get what you've been longing for, and the question lingers, why not me? You're not alone in that waiting room. You're not the only one who's had a promise hanging over their head, wondering if it will ever come to pass. But I've come to tell you today that God has not forgotten you. He's heard your prayers, He's seen your tears, and He's about to reward you for your faithfulness. You see, when God says He will reward you, it's not just a reward in the material sense. It's not just about the job, the house, the relationship, or the things we sometimes get so caught up in. When God rewards you, He does it in ways that surpass human understanding. He rewards you with peace that passes all understanding. He rewards you with joy that cannot be shaken by circumstances. He rewards you with a new level of grace to handle the challenges that you will face in the future. And He does it tonight in ways that only He can. Let me tell you something about the nature of God's rewards. God's rewards don't come when we expect them, but always when we need them most. You might be sitting there thinking, I don't know if I can take another day of waiting. You might be at your breaking point. You might be tired, frustrated, and ready to give up. But you've got to remember, God is never late. He's always right on time. He knows the exact moment when the blessing will make sense. He knows the exact moment when the door will open. He knows the exact moment when everything you've been praying for will begin to unfold before your eyes. The Word of God tells us that they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. That's a promise. It's not a suggestion. It's a guarantee. When you wait on God, He doesn't leave you empty-handed. There's something in the waiting. There's a blessing in the process. You might not see it right now, but every tear, every prayer, every sacrifice has been noticed by God, and the moment of reward is drawing closer than you think. But here's the thing. When God rewards you, He doesn't just reward you for the things you've done in public. He rewards you for what you've done in private. It's the times when you've worshiped when nobody else was around. It's the moments when you kept going when you felt like quitting. It's the times when you forgave when it would have been easier to hold on to bitterness. It's the times when you sowed seed into someone else's life, even though your own life felt barren. God sees it all, and He's preparing to reward you for those moments that others didn't see. The moments when it was just you and Him. And let me remind you that God's rewards aren't just for the perfect. We're all human, we all make mistakes, we all stumble and fall. But God doesn't reward us based on perfection. He rewards us based on our heart, based on our willingness to trust Him, even when it doesn't make sense, based on our persistence in believing in His promises, even when everything around us says otherwise. When God rewards you, He doesn't just give you what you think you want, He gives you what He knows you need. We often think we know what's best for us. We make plans, we set goals, and we pursue our own desires. But God sees the big picture. He sees the road ahead, the twists and turns, the hills and valleys. He knows what you need to get to the next level, to fulfill your purpose and to walk in the destiny He's called you to. Sometimes the reward looks different than what you expected, but it's always exactly what you need to go to the next place in your life. I want to tell you that tonight, right where you are, God is about to reward you for your faithfulness. You've been faithful in the small things. You've been faithful in the unseen. You've been faithful in the midst of trials. And God sees every ounce of it. It's like a father watching his child work hard, struggling to climb higher. And then at just the right moment, He rewards that child with a sense of accomplishment, with a sense of joy, and with a sense of pride that they've done it. And this reward, it's not just for you, it's for everyone who's watching. There are people in your life who are going to witness God's reward in your life, and it's going to inspire them to believe that God can do the same for them. You've been praying for change, and I want you to hear me clearly tonight. Change is coming. I know you've been waiting for breakthrough, but when it happens, it's going to happen suddenly. It's going to happen in a moment. You might not even see it coming. You might be going about your business thinking it's just another ordinary day, and then boom, the doors open, the answers come, the blessings flow. That's how God works. He's a God of suddenlies. He's a God who can turn things around in an instant. One moment, you're struggling, and the next moment, you're walking in the blessing you've been praying for. One moment you're fighting to stay afloat, and the next moment you're standing on solid ground with your feet planted in the promises of God. But don't let the suddenlies catch you off guard. Get ready. Prepare yourself for what God is about to do in your life. When God rewards you, it's not just about you getting what you want, it's about God getting the glory. When God blesses you, He does it in such a way that you can't take credit for it. You can't say, I did this myself. No, you're going to have to look up to the heavens and say, God did this. Only God could have done this. Only God could have opened this door. Only God could have made a way when there seemed to be no way. The reward is coming, and it's coming in ways that you never imagined. It's not just about what you're going to receive. It's about who you're going to become through the process. The reward is not just a destination, it's a journey. It's about how God has shaped you, how He's stretched your faith, how He's built your character, and how He's made you stronger than you were before. When the reward comes, it's going to be a testimony to the greatness of God in your life. I'm here to remind you tonight that God has not forgotten you. He has not passed you by. Your time is coming. Your season of waiting is coming to an end, and your season of reward is about to begin. It's going to be greater than anything you've imagined. It's going to be beyond what you thought possible. God is about to show you that He is faithful to His promises, that He is true to His word, and that He always rewards those who diligently seek Him. So tonight, stand in anticipation. Stand in expectation. Get ready for the shift. Get ready for the open door. Get ready for the unexpected blessing, because the reward is coming. And when it does, you're going to look back and see that everything you've been through, every trial, every test, every moment of waiting has been worth it. The reward that God is about to give you is not just for you, it's for the generations to come. It's for everyone who's been watching you, waiting for you to give up. They're about to witness the goodness of God in your life in a way that will leave them in awe. God said, rewarded tonight, and tonight is your night. Even in seasons of uncertainty and waiting, God sees and honors your persistence, patience, and trust in His promises. The reward may not come immediately, but it's coming at the perfect time when you need it the most. God's rewards are not just about material gain, but about providing what you truly need for your growth and fulfillment of His plan for your life. The rewards He brings are designed to elevate you spiritually, emotionally, and purposefully, preparing you for the next level in your destiny. When God rewards you, it often comes suddenly and unexpectedly. Stay prepared and in faith, knowing that your breakthrough may come when you least expect it, but it will always be greater than you imagine. Faithfulness in the waiting is a concept that runs deep in the heart of anyone who has ever experienced a prolonged season of anticipation. It's easy to be faithful when things are moving quickly, when you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, or when the blessings seem to come effortlessly. But waiting? That's a different story. Waiting tests our resolve, challenges our patience, and forces us to grapple with doubts. Yet, it's in the waiting that God often does some of His most profound work in our lives. The reality is that God rewards faithfulness in the waiting, and it's a promise that we can rely on no matter how long the wait may seem. When we look at the lives of great figures in the Bible, many of them had to endure long periods of waiting before their promises came to pass. Abraham waited for years for the promised son, Isaac. And in those years, his faith was tested and refined. Sarah, his wife, had to wait even longer and laughed at the idea of having a child at her age. But in the end, God rewarded their faithfulness, and Isaac was born. God's reward in this story wasn't just about the son. It was about the transformation that took place in Abraham and Sarah's hearts as they waited. Their faith was stretched, their trust in God grew, and when the promise was finally fulfilled, it was more than just an answer to a prayer. It was a testament to God's faithfulness and the power of waiting with trust. Similarly, Joseph's life exemplifies the painful but powerful process of waiting. Joseph had dreams of greatness, but his path to the fulfillment of those dreams was nothing short of a trial. He was sold into slavery by his own brothers, falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit, and thrown into prison. Yet through it all, Joseph remained faithful. He didn't give up on God, and he didn't let bitterness take root in his heart. Instead, he chose to trust God in the midst of the waiting. His reward came when God elevated him from the prison to the palace, making him second in command over all of Egypt. Joseph's waiting wasn't in vain. It was in those years of suffering and patience that God refined him, preparing him for the position he would one day hold, where he would be in a place to save not only his family, but also an entire nation from famine. Waiting is not passive. It requires active faith. When you're waiting, you're not just sitting idle doing nothing. Faithful waiting involves a posture of expectation, a heart that continues to trust and believe even when circumstances suggest otherwise. It's about remaining committed to the promises of God even when you can't see the way forward. God is not a man that he should lie, and his word will always come to pass. But while waiting, we often learn valuable lessons that prepare us for what's to come. It's a season of growth, development, and strengthening. God's rewards in the waiting aren't just about the end result, but also about the process that shapes us. One of the most difficult aspects of waiting is the feeling of isolation. It can feel like everyone else around you is moving forward, getting their breakthroughs and receiving the rewards, while you're stuck in a season of delay. You begin to wonder why your prayers aren't being answered, why it feels like you're being overlooked, and whether God has forgotten you. But this is where the true test of faith comes. It's easy to trust God when things are going well, but when things are delayed, that's when your faith is truly tested. God is not distant in those moments. He's right there with you, walking you through the process. He's refining your character, shaping your heart, and preparing you for the moment when he opens the door. The Bible encourages us in Isaiah 40:31, saying, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary, and they shall walk and not faint." This verse reminds us that waiting is not a sign of weakness, but of strength. It's in the waiting that we are built up, strengthened, and empowered by God. There is an anointing that comes with waiting that can only be received in the season of delay. You may feel like you're not getting anywhere, but in God's economy, the waiting season is never wasted. It's a time when he builds you up in ways you can't always see or understand. It's a season where you are being equipped with the strength you need to handle what's coming next. God doesn't just reward the end of the waiting, he rewards you in the waiting. He sees the quiet moments when you choose to trust him despite your circumstance. He sees the times when you continue to worship and pray even though you've been waiting for years. He hears the prayers you've whispered in the night when no one else was listening. He is faithful, and he honors those who remain faithful even when it seems like nothing is happening. The reward for your faithfulness in the waiting might not be immediate, but it will come in ways that are more powerful than you could imagine. What is the reward for faithfulness in the waiting? It's not always about the tangible things, though God is able to bless us with the desires of our hearts. The reward is often about the deepening of our relationship with God. It's in the waiting that we learn to trust him more fully, to lean on him when we have nothing else to rely on. The reward is spiritual maturity. It's a deeper understanding of God's character, his ways, and his timing. It's the peace that comes when you know that even though you don't have all the answers, you trust the one who holds your future. It's also important to note that the reward isn't just for you, it's for those around you as well. When you remain faithful in the waiting, you become a living testimony to others. People are watching how you handle the delay. They are seeing how you walk through the trial. Your faith in the waiting can inspire others to keep going, to trust God in their own waiting seasons. You may not know the impact your faithfulness is having on the people around you, but rest assured that your perseverance is making a difference. And when the reward finally comes, it will be a testimony to God's goodness and faithfulness. It will be proof that He has not forgotten you, that He has been with you all along, and that He has been preparing something greater than you could have imagined. The reward will be a reflection of His glory in your life, and it will be a reminder to you and everyone around you that waiting on God is never in vain. God rewards faithfulness in the waiting. He sees every tear, every prayer, every moment of doubt that you choose to overcome with faith. He sees your heart, your perseverance, and your trust in His perfect timing. So hold on, even when the waiting feels long. Trust that God is working in the waiting, and when the time is right, He will reward your faithfulness in ways that are beyond your understanding. God's rewards are always carefully designed to align with your unique purpose in life. While it's easy to think of rewards as a simple exchange or as something that happens only when we've met certain conditions, God's rewards go far beyond the surface. They aren't just given for the sake of giving. They are tailor-made for the journey He has laid out for you. Every blessing, every promise, every act of provision is meant to equip you to fulfill the specific plan and purpose that God has for your life. They are not random, they are intentional. One of the most remarkable things about God's rewards is that they are not one size fits all. Unlike the world's system of rewards, which can sometimes feel generic or impersonal, God's rewards are deeply personal. They are crafted with you in mind. They take into account your unique talents, your personality, your calling, your struggles, and your growth. God understands the specific challenges you face and knows the exact tools and gifts you need to overcome them. His rewards are meant to build you up, to strengthen you, and to position you for what He has prepared for you in the future. If you look throughout Scripture, you see this principle in action. Take David, for example. David was anointed king of Israel, but the road to the throne was far from easy. He spent years running for his life, hiding from King Saul, who wanted to kill him. During those years, David's heart was refined, his character was shaped, and his faith was tested. But God didn't give him a crown immediately. Instead, He gave him the skill of a warrior, the wisdom of a leader, and the heart of a shepherd. Each of these rewards was specifically suited to David's purpose as the future king of Israel. The reward of becoming king didn't come in the way David might have expected, but when the time came, everything he had gone through had equipped him to rule with the wisdom, strength, and humility that God wanted him to have. Similarly, consider the story of Esther. Esther's reward wasn't just about becoming queen. It was about her divine purpose in saving the Jewish people. Her rise to the throne was not an accident or a random act of fate. It was God's intentional plan to place her in a position where she could carry out a mission of great significance. The beauty that made her stand out in the king's palace was not just for her personal benefit, it was part of a larger plan. The favor she received from the king wasn't merely a reward for her own good, it was for the deliverance of an entire people. Esther's reward came when she stepped into her purpose, recognizing that her position had been given to her for such a time as this. In each of these examples, you see that the rewards God gives are deeply connected to His purpose for the individual. The reward isn't just about getting something you want, it's about receiving what you need in order to fulfill the purpose that God has designed for your life. When God rewards you, He doesn't just give you what seems right in the moment. He gives you what you need for the journey ahead. The reward might not always look the way you expect, but it will always be exactly what you need to continue moving forward in your calling. God's rewards also come at the right time. They are not arbitrary or accidental, nor do they come when you think you're ready. God, in His infinite wisdom, knows the exact timing for everything in your life. He knows when you are prepared to handle the responsibility that comes with the reward. When the time is right, He will bless you in ways that will empower you to fulfill His purpose for you. It's easy to get frustrated when things seem delayed, but God's timing is perfect. When He rewards you, it will be at the moment when you are both spiritually and emotionally ready to handle it. Just as a child needs time to grow before they can handle the responsibilities of adulthood, God waits for the right time to give us the rewards that will enable us to fulfill His purpose for us. Moreover, God's rewards are not just about material blessings or achievements. While God does provide for our material needs and desires, His rewards often come in the form of spiritual and emotional growth. God wants to reward you with peace, wisdom, strength, and the ability to handle life's challenges. His rewards empower you to live the life you are meant to live and fulfill the destiny He has set before you. These rewards may not always be visible to others, but they are incredibly valuable. The peace that surpasses all understanding, the joy that remains in the midst of trials, the ability to forgive when it seems impossible. These are all rewards that God gives us to equip us for His purpose. Sometimes God's rewards come in the form of open doors and opportunities that you couldn't have orchestrated on your own. These divine opportunities are designed to propel you forward in your purpose. Just as God opened doors for Joseph in Egypt, God will open doors for you at the right moment. These rewards will align with the purpose He has placed on your life, and they will position you for success in fulfilling that purpose. You may not see these doors opening at first, but when you look back, you'll recognize how perfectly God's plan unfolded. Even in the midst of difficulty, God's rewards are at work. It's easy to see the rewards in seasons of prosperity and abundance, but God is just as faithful in rewarding us during seasons of trial. In fact, some of God's greatest rewards are found in the difficulties we face. It's through the struggles that God refines us, shapes our character, and strengthens our resolve. These challenges are often part of the process that leads us into the fullness of our purpose. The reward for enduring hardship is not just survival, it's growth. It's the ability to walk through life with a deeper understanding of who you are, who God is, and what your purpose truly is. God's rewards are also relational. Sometimes the most significant reward we can receive is the deepened relationship we have with God and with others. As we walk in His purpose, we become more connected to Him. We learn to trust Him more, lean on Him more, and rely on His wisdom. In turn, our relationships with others are transformed as well. We learn to love, forgive, and serve in ways that reflect God's character. These relational rewards are some of the most profound gifts God gives us on our journey toward fulfilling our purpose. As you walk in the path that God has laid out for you, be encouraged that His rewards are never random. They are intentionally designed to help you become who He created you to be, whether it's wisdom, strength, peace, opportunities, or relationships. God's rewards are given with your purpose in mind. Every reward you receive is part of God's greater plan for your life, a plan to prosper you, to give you a future, and to bring glory to His name through your journey. So trust in the process, trust in His timing, and remember that every reward you receive is one step closer to fulfilling the unique and beautiful purpose that God has destined for you. There's a powerful truth that runs throughout the Bible and through the lives of many people who have experienced God's faithfulness. Breakthroughs and blessings can come suddenly, often when least expected. It's easy to assume that God's plans for us unfold gradually, with each step clearly marked and laid out in front of us. But God is a God of the unexpected. He works in ways that surprise us, ways that leave us awestruck at His timing and His ability to turn things around in an instant. The scripture is full of accounts where God's people experienced sudden breakthroughs that transformed their situations and launched them into new seasons of favor, freedom, and promise. These moments didn't come after long periods of waiting or gradual steps. They came suddenly, unexpectedly, and they changed everything. When you study the lives of biblical characters, you realize that many times their breakthroughs came when they were least expecting them. Take, for example, the story of the Israelites in the wilderness. They had been wandering for years, caught in a cycle of disappointment and struggle, wondering if they would ever enter the promised land. Then, at the moment when everything seemed hopeless, God caused the Jordan River to part, and suddenly they were on the threshold of the land that had been promised to them. They had waited and they had fought, but the breakthrough came in a way that they couldn't have predicted. It came suddenly at the very moment they were ready for it. God's sudden breakthroughs often occur when we've reached a place where we've exhausted all our efforts, when our own strength is no longer enough, and when we are at the end of our resources. This is the moment when God steps in with his divine timing and makes a way where there seems to be no way. Just as the Israelites had no way of crossing the Jordan on their own, and the walls of Jericho seemed insurmountable, God provided breakthroughs that defied human understanding. His timing is always perfect, and he knows exactly when to move on our behalf. Sudden breakthroughs are not limited to just grand, miraculous events like parting rivers or falling walls. Sometimes they come in more subtle, everyday moments, but their impact is just as profound. Think of the story of Ruth. She was a widow without much hope for a future, and yet God's plan for her life took a sudden turn when she happened to meet Boaz while gleaning in the fields. It wasn't planned, it wasn't expected, but God orchestrated a breakthrough for her. Ruth's life was transformed from sorrow to joy, from lack to abundance, all in one moment. It wasn't the result of a long process of climbing a ladder step by step. It was a divine intervention that changed everything. We often think that breakthroughs only come when we're actively working hard, striving to make things happen. But the truth is, breakthroughs often come when we are just faithfully doing what is in front of us. Ruth was simply following her mother-in-law's instructions to glean in the fields. She didn't know that God was working behind the scenes, aligning her steps to bring her into a position of favor. This is one of the beautiful things about God's sudden breakthroughs. They happen when we are faithful in the small things, even when we don't realize the greater plan at work. Another key aspect of sudden breakthroughs is that they often bring blessings that go far beyond what we could have imagined. Think about the story of the widow in 2 Kings 4, who was facing the loss of her sons to creditors. In her desperation, she turned to the prophet Elisha for help, and God performed a miracle through him by multiplying her oil. She was able to sell the oil, pay off her debts, and live off the remainder. This wasn't just a small miracle. It was a life-changing breakthrough. The widow's situation, which seemed impossible, was suddenly transformed by a miraculous provision from God. Not only did she experience the immediate breakthrough she needed, but the blessing was more than enough for her to live on. God's breakthroughs are often abundant, overflowing in ways we never expected. It's important to note that God's breakthroughs don't just come in moments of crisis or need. Sometimes God brings sudden breakthroughs in times of peace and stability too. Take the story of Joseph. After years of suffering and injustice, Joseph was suddenly elevated from the prison to the palace. He was given authority over all of Egypt, becoming second in command only to Pharaoh. His rise to power was sudden, and it was a breakthrough that changed not just his life, but the future of an entire nation. Joseph's story reminds us that even when things are going well, God can still bring sudden shifts that take us to new levels of favor and opportunity. These breakthroughs may not always come in the form of crisis, but they still have the power to change everything in an instant. God is not bound by our expectations or our timelines. We often believe that things will happen gradually, and we wait for slow progress. But God's ways are higher than our ways, and his thoughts are higher than our thoughts. He is able to open doors and make things happen in ways that we cannot foresee. Sometimes we get so focused on the process, thinking that every breakthrough will be gradual, that we fail to recognize when God is preparing to move suddenly. But when he does, it can feel like an overnight change. One day things are one way, and the next day everything is different. That's the power of God's timing. Expecting sudden breakthroughs means that you remain in a posture of faith and anticipation, ready to receive the unexpected blessings that God has in store for you. It requires believing that God is working on your behalf even when you can't see it. It's about having faith that he is always moving, always orchestrating the pieces, even when life seems stagnant or things aren't happening on your timeline. The breakthrough may come when you least expect it, but the key is to remain faithful, to keep trusting, and to keep doing the work that is in front of you. God is a God of abundance, and his blessings often come in ways that exceed our expectations. Just as the widow in the Old Testament had more than enough oil to meet her needs, God's breakthroughs often come with an abundance that spills over into every area of our lives. This abundance isn't just material, it can be spiritual, emotional, relational, and even intellectual. The blessings God brings in these sudden moments are meant to elevate you, to bring you into new levels of favor and purpose, and to expand your capacity to fulfill your destiny. The beauty of God's sudden breakthroughs is that they are not based on our effort or our timing. They are based on God's sovereignty, his love for us, and his perfect plan for our lives. We may not understand why things happen the way they do or why certain breakthroughs come at the moment they do, but we can trust that God is working all things for our good. His breakthroughs are often meant to propel us forward into something greater than we could have imagined for ourselves. They are often a launching pad for new opportunities, new dreams, and new purposes that we haven't yet. It's important to be ready for these breakthroughs, to be in a position where you can receive the blessing when it comes. Sometimes that means staying grounded in your faith, continuing to trust God, and preparing yourself to step into what he has in store for you. Other times it means being open to the unexpected, embracing the changes that come, and being willing to walk through the doors that open, even if they don't look exactly the way you thought they would. Remember, God works in the unexpected. He is able to bring about sudden breakthroughs and blessings that will change your life in an instant. Stay faithful, stay expectant, and know that God's timing is always perfect. Your breakthrough may be closer than you think.